Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. We've been studying Sutta number 6 from the Majjhima Nikaya. This is the Ākankheyya Sutta. Ākankheyya means if one should wish. And since this is addressed to the monks, so the key line from the actual sutta is if a bhikkhu, if a monk should wish. And just to review, the sutta opens with the Buddha making a statement, an injunction to the monks that they should dwell possessed of virtue, possessed of the patimokkha. The patimokkha is the code of monastic discipline, that they should be restrained with the restraint of the patimokkha, restrained by the monastic rules, perfect in conduct and resort, and seeing fear in the slightest fault, trained by undertaking the training precept. Then he follows this with another statement, which is repeated in each of the sections, which is another injunction to the monks, telling them to fulfill not simply the observance of the precepts, but to fulfill the entire threefold training. What is the threefold training? It's the training in the higher moral discipline or virtue, sila. This will be the adhi-sila, the higher virtue. The training in the higher mind or higher consciousness, the mind of samadhi, adhicitta sika. And the training in the higher wisdom, adhipanya sika. And he doesn't mention these three trainings explicitly, but they are implied by the terms that he uses. And we have the terms. Do we write them? Maybe you can read the passage to me, then I can stand by the blackboard. The passage that begins in paragraph 3, let him fulfill the precept. Okay, let me just the main heading, the higher virtue, the higher mind. Okay, so on the basis of these, we say these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 injunctions, or 5 factors, let us say, the Buddha enumerates 17 benefits that come from fulfilling them. Last week I dealt with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first 6 benefits, which are enunciated in paragraphs 3 through 8. Now we come to paragraph 9. If a bhikkhu should wish, may I become one to obtain at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas that constitute the higher mind and provide a pleasant abiding here and now. Let him fulfill the precepts. Okay, we already spoke about the 4 jhanas at length when we discussed the shorter discourse on the elephant's footprint, so I won't go into an analysis of them here. But this statement simply makes clear conditions for the attainment of the jhanas. That is, one has to be one has to be one who fulfills the precepts. That is, one needs a solid basis of moral discipline. If one is not scrupulously observing a code of ethical conduct, code of moral discipline, and the code, especially for the monastics, which promulgates rules that encourage restraint and self-discipline, then one will be lacking the supporting conditions one of the supporting conditions for the jhanas. Because to achieve the jhanas, one has to gain mastery and control over the 5 hindrances, and particularly over the hindrance of sensual desire, kama chanda. And the code of moral discipline helps to restrain the grosser expressions of sensual desire, of sensuality. And then that serves as a basis for training the mind to restrain the inner impulses of sensuality that arise in the form of thoughts, moods, attitudes. Okay, so one needs that foundation of moral discipline. Then one needs to be devoted to internal serenity of mind. That is, one needs a meditation subject which is conducive to the jhanas, for example, mindfulness of breathing, or one of the kasina objects, or one of the, the asubha objects, the asubha bujing, is that what it be? Bujing, impurity, bujing. What's translated as the foulness of the body. Even though that can also lead to insight, but it also brings a calming down of desire, and so it can lead to, according to the commentaries, it can lead to the first jhana, though not higher than that. Or also the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy can lead to the 3 lower jhanas, though not to the 4th. But for the direct approach to serenity of mind would be through mindfulness of breathing or the kasina objects. Those are the most direct approaches. For attaining the jhanas, the development of insight is not essential. So if one develops insight, one could use insight first as a means to weaken the hindrances, and then later, when the hindrances are weakened through insight, one could devote oneself to the practice of developing serenity of mind, developing samatha, this calming and concentration of the mind, and on that basis develop the jhanas. Okay, and the 4 jhanas are said to constitute the higher mind. So when the Buddha speaks about the training in the higher mind, this adhicitta sikha, what this means is the training that aims at the attainment of the jhanas. And then for those who achieve the jhanas, it is the training aimed at stabilizing and mastering the jhanas, so that they become a stable possession, a constant, unwavering possession. And they are said to be a pleasant abiding here and now, dita dhamma sukha vihara, because they are pleasant experiences, the most pleasant type of experiences, the most blissful, happy type of mundane, or I don't want to say worldly, but the most pleasant type of experiences short of the world transcending attainment. The most pleasant, blissful, happy experiences possible, with the exception of the supramundane or world transcending experiences. So for those who achieve the jhanas, then any type of happiness, pleasure that people aspire to in the world of sensuality appears to be just trivial, shallow, deceptive, delusive, illusory, empty, pointless. Since here one has a kind of pool of bliss within oneself, that one can just draw the mind back from the involvement in sensory experience wherever one is. So usually one needs some supporting outer conditions, but with just the simple supporting outer conditions, one just draws the mind back from its involvement in the sensory world and plunges into this deep inner pool of bliss and rapture and peace and tranquility and happiness. And one can remain there, for those who master it, for hours, even some say for a whole day, several days at a time, experiencing just pure, unadulterated bliss. And then one comes out and one sees people going on 2-week vacations to this place, that place, and world tours, and go sightseeing here and there and coming back. And then they're exhausted, their nerves are all jangled. And you ask them, did you have a good time? And they say, oh, I had a wonderful time. But in truth, they need another 2 weeks of vacation just to recover from their vacation. Okay, so this is paragraph 10. But though the jhanas are blissful, pleasant, happy abiding, but still there are states beyond them that are even superior, even within the mundane sphere. These are states that are called the formless or immaterial attainments. In Pali, they're called the arupa samapatis. So these are 4 higher stages on the ladder, on the scale of concentration or samadhi. So after the meditator attains the 4th dhyana, masters it, he can go further if he has sufficiently strong faculty of concentration and the desire to go further, by shifting the attention away from the object of the jhana. The object of the jhana will be a rupa nimitta, an object which still has the characteristic of form. It could be a bright, radiant light, a luminous sphere, some beautiful, radiant object. And then that object will be, in order to go into the immaterial or formless attainment, one takes that luminous object, the sign or object of concentration, and extends it until it fills up the entire, seemingly it fills up the entire mental cosmos, the entire domain of the mind, so that it seems to be extended all over the universe. It's pervading the whole universe. Then one withdraws that luminous object, one rolls it up, so to speak, pulls it away, so that the object itself vanishes and disappears, and all that remains is the space that was covered by the object. And since that object had been extended infinitely throughout the whole universe, now what remains is the object of the mind is the infinity of space. And so now the mind is absorbed into this infinity of space. That is the first formless attainment, the base of the infinity of space. And then beyond that, there are still 3 other formless attainments. Each one is higher than the other. From the infinity of space, one moves to the infinity of consciousness. That's a still subtler object. From the infinity of consciousness, one moves to the state called the base of nothingness. This nothingness is not the nothingness of shunyata, of emptiness. This is called Ākankheyya. You might call this the unobstructedness. It comes through focusing upon the unobstructed nature of the infinite consciousness. And then beyond the base of nothingness is a state called the sphere, or the base of neither perception nor non-perception. And that 4th formless attainment, that is the highest possible state of mundane or, quote, worldly concentration. Beyond this, it's just not possible to unify the mind any further. This is like the peak of concentration. And these 4 formless attainments, they're not called pleasant abiding like the jhanas, because here pleasant feeling is absent. Rather, the feeling here is the subtler feeling of equanimous feeling, or let's call it neutral feeling which is neither pleasant nor painful, but it's a very wholesome type of neutral feeling, not dull and different neutral, not dull, colorless neutral feeling. But this is very sublime, peaceful, pure neutral feeling, accompanied by an extraordinary degree of equanimity. And these attainments are apparently so powerful that the text uses the expression that one contacts them with the body. Kayena pusit va. It's as if it's a kind of metaphorical expression, as though one is touching them with the body. And they're reached by transcending forms, because one is passed beyond any type of form object as the object of meditation. And even though the word liberation is used, they're called liberations, but these are not ultimate liberations. They're not liberations from defilement. they are temporary liberations of mind, in that in these states the mind is freed temporarily from the activity of defilement, and the mind in these formless states is freed from any involvement in the world of matter, substance, form. So they're very peaceful, very tranquil, very characterized by a very high degree of equanimity. But they're not states in any way of eradication of defilements. They don't involve any removal of defilements at the root level. Okay, so these are states reached through the development of tranquility, of concentration. They're developments along the scale of the jhanas, but they just carry the jhanic attainments to still higher levels. So the Buddha, he encouraged them, he praises them, but he doesn't treat them as final resting places. So now, in the next passage, he's going to show the attainments that lead to true liberation. And these attainments do not require, certainly they don't require the attainment of the formless attainment. So we shouldn't think that we have a scale here, that one first attains the jhanas, then attains the formless attainments, then one goes into, attains the world-transcending attainment. Rather, in my view, in my understanding, the first two world-transcending, supramundane attainments can be reached directly through insight with some degree of samadhi or serenity of mind, without necessarily reaching before those attainments, without even reaching the jhanas. That is my personal opinion, though I know that there are some others who disagree with that. But for the attainment of these stages of true liberation, of the stages where defilements are actually cut off, the essential training now is the training in wisdom. Or in other words, now of these factors that the Buddha is prescribing, now the key prescription is possession of insight. And insight requires some degree of serenity, so one needs some ajjatang ceto samatha, some degree of internal serenity of mind. Whether that serenity of mind has to come to the level of the first jhana or not, this is a matter about which there are different opinions. My view, based upon examination of the suttas, is that from the stock definitions and explanations of stream enterers and once returners, they are not characteristically attainers of the jhanas, certainly not masters of the jhanas. But they do have the wisdom of insight into arising and passing away, the wisdom that sees into the truth, the principle of impermanence. And that is the wisdom, the Buddha says, that leads to the complete destruction of suffering. Okay, so these attainments take place especially through the development of insight based upon a certain minimum degree of samadhi or concentration. And what happens at a certain stage, a certain point, when the wisdom becomes strong enough? There's actually two types of disciples here, divided according to their dominant faculty. According to different people have different faculties, but when it comes to approaching the first supermundane stage, the key determining factors are the two faculties of faith and wisdom. One can't reach the supermundane without wisdom, but people's personalities differ according to what is the driving factor in this quest for liberating wisdom. Some people, the motivating factor is faith, not as blind belief, but it's saddha. Saddha in the sense of trust in the Buddha, trust in the truth of the teaching, conviction in the truth of the teaching, and a strong aspiration for liberation. And that trust, conviction, aspiration is what motivates the person to engage intensively in the practice, to develop insight. And when that insight reaches a certain level where it becomes attuned to the nature of things, the nature of actuality, the person reaches a stage called, the person becomes one who is sad-anusari, one who has entered the path, attained the path, as one who is following through faith. Okay, when this takes place, and the person becomes, the first person is one who follows along through faith. This person enters the path motivated, impelled by this faith, conviction, and aspiration. The other type of person is the person in whom the dominant faculty is panya, or wisdom. And this is the type of person who follows the Dhamma the driving force is the wish to understand, to comprehend the nature of things. The driving force is this wish this need to investigate, to dissect, to scrutinize, to comprehend. So that's a different personality type. And this personality type, through that need to know, to understand, to comprehend, this person undertakes the practice. And through investigation, scrutiny, and that person comes to understand the Dhamma to a certain extent, the person becomes Dhammanusari. The person has now entered the path through wisdom, through investigation. And it's said that when these people, when they enter the path, they are assured of definite attainment of stream entry within this very life. They cannot die without realization of the fruit. And so now the person who has reached either of these modes of attaining the path continues to practice, and at a certain point the faculties, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom come into balance. And when they come into balance, and especially when the wisdom faculty in both persons, when the wisdom faculty is strong enough, it will push right through the limits of mundane reality and realize the ultimate, the world transcending ultimate reality, Nibbana. And with that, the person becomes a stream enterer, one who has now definitely entered upon the stream of the Dhamma irreversibly. This person has now seen the truth of the teaching. And with that breakthrough to the ultimate, there takes place simultaneously the eradication of 3 of the 10 fetters, or 10 fetters, bonds that have kept us in bondage to the samsara, the round of rebirth, through beginningless time. And with this momentary breakthrough to the realization of stream entry, these first three fetters are broken apart, they're burst asunder. The 3 fetters first, here it's translated, it's not translated, it's not mentioned in the sutta. But in the Majjhima Nikaya, I used to translate it personality view, but I realize now that's unsatisfactory because the word personality has a somewhat different nuance than the word sakkaya. The Pali term is sakkaya ditthi. And sakkaya means the compound of the 5 aggregates that we call myself, what I am. The compound that we take to be our personal identity. So now I prefer a rendering coined by Bhikkhu Thanissaro, identity view, which I think is better. So this is a view which locates one's identity, one's self, within the 5 aggregates, or as standing in some relationship to the 5 aggregates. Later we'll come across suttas in which identity view is elaborated, so is explained in its different modes, so I won't elaborate upon it here. Just for now it's sufficient to know that identity view is the view of a self existing in some relationship to the 5 aggregates. Now the disciple has seen into the truth of anatta, of selflessness. And so the disciple can no longer hold to any view of a self existing in any relationship to the 5 aggregates. The second fetter is doubt. Doubt about the Buddha as an enlightened one, doubt about the Dhamma as the truth, and about the Dhamma as the truth and the path, doubt about an Aryan Sangha, an order of noble ones. And since the disciple has now seen the truth of the Dhamma, He has no doubt that the Buddha is indeed enlightened, that the Dhamma is indeed the truth, and this practice is indeed the path, and that those who realize this truth are truly the noble ones. And the third fetter is the fetter commonly translated clinging to rites and rituals, but I think this is misleading translation. More correct translation would be clinging to rules and observances. And what is meant here is referring to the types of practices undertaken by the Buddha's contemporaries. We call practices external to the path. The idea that by engaging in certain ascetic practices, adhering to certain fixed routines, especially engaging in these types of self-mortification. So it might also include the Brahminic rituals. One can gain liberation. So one now sees liberation is only possible by following this process of the purification of virtue or of morality, the purification of mind, the purification of wisdom. And so now those three fetters fall apart, and the disciple becomes a stream enterer, so-called sotapanna, because he is entered into the stream of the Eightfold Path, which leads irreversibly to the great ocean of nirvana. And such a disciple no longer subject to perdition. All those who understand the word perdition, all those who don't understand the word perdition, raise your hand. Thank you. Because I don't use that rendering anymore. I changed it in the Samyutta Nikaya to no longer can be reborn in the lower world, I think, or lower world, lower realm. Okay, what this means is that they can no longer be reborn in any of the three lower realms. The hell realm, the realm of the afflicted spirits, or the animal realm. And they are niyato, bound. That is, they're bound for liberation. They're irreversible in their destiny. And some bodhi parai, some bodhi parai, they have full enlightenment as their destination. Maybe I'll ask if there's any questions at this point. I will go on, but just, yeah, the second and third seem to be very closely connected.
You have no doubt about the Dhamma.
Yeah. I see them very closely connected. It's just that the way they impact upon the mind is quite different. Of course, doubt, psychologically, it's a state of wavering, uncertainty, vacillation. Is the Buddha enlightened? Is this really true, this teaching? Should I be doing this or not? That's a state of vacillation, doubt. Whereas adhering to rules and observances, this is, perhaps it also exists in Buddhists. Maybe it's not just so the way the commentaries explain it's outside practices, but it's maybe this attitude of clinging to certain external formalities, thinking this is the way, just the external formalities. So it's an attitude of tight adherence. Instead of seeing that the true way is through the purification of moral discipline, concentration, purification of mind, purification. Oh, definitely so. Yeah. The woman, yeah. Well, you see, they're named simply by their numbers: first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Yeah. I'm afraid I can't really elaborate very much more. But I just say what the commentary says, but I don't think I would go 100% along with it. The commentary says, because it has to fit everything in neatly into the system, so it says, kaya here is namakaya. What's meant by the body is the name, the mental body. So what's the collection of mental factors? Because it's the mind, the collection of mental factors, that experiences the formless attainment. So that makes it very consistent. You don't have to worry about that nasty little problem, that inconsistency of the body, a physical body experiencing an immaterial or formless attainment. But what I think is that probably for those within the yogic tradition who are practicing, even though the experience is called formless because the object is now a formless object, one has dropped the form, the sign that has been the object of the jhana. So one now takes something intangible, non-concrete, like infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, either perception or non-perception. But I would say that experience of that formless attainment is something very powerful. So it's, while one is in the attainment, one is not also experiencing the body. It's just like one is not experiencing anything physical. But perhaps when one comes out of that experience, it's just such a powerful experience, so soothing and tranquilizing that it's as if the body, again metaphorically, as if the body has been immersed in that experience. Any additional questions? Yeah. I don't think I will elaborate upon that now, because I deliberately didn't go into a detailed explanation of the formless attainments, except how the first is gone into from the jhanas. Because first there'll be suttas, I think, where we actually come to the formulas for the formless attainments. Here they're just treated very concisely, and I want to proceed through the sutta, and I would hope to finish it tonight. And also, there's not much that I could say about it, except so let me then go on. Would I be rushing? Okay, we'll take a little more time if necessary, but I would like to finish the sutta tonight. Okay, now paragraph 12. Now he's showing the second supermundane, or the stage of liberation. This is called the stage of once returner. I write the Pali for that. Sakad agami. Okay, now one who becomes a stream enterer, if such a one doesn't go any further, then that person will have at most 7 more existences, 7 more lives, as reborn either in the heavenly realm or in the human realm. But no more than 7. The 7th existence, everything finished, final nirvana. But here we're taking the hypothetical case of a disciple who wishes to go further. And by going further, the disciple will now continue with developing maybe stronger samadhi and especially stronger insight. And so now, with the attainment of the second stage, the disciple does not actually destroy or cut off any new fetters. In the formula, the destruction of 3 fetters is mentioned just to show that they've already been cut off at the stage of stream enterer. This is according to the standard way of explanation. Though what sometimes happens is that one with very ripe faculties can go through 2 stages in such rapid succession that it's just almost momentary. That if the faculties are very ripe, they'll go into the stage of stream enterer, and right after that to the stage of once returner. Just in the snap, maybe quicker than the snap of a finger. So that's why the destruction of 3 fetters is mentioned in the case of once returner. But actually the destruction of 3 fetters takes place at the stage of stream enterer, and with the stage, attaining the stage of once returner, no new fetter is actually cut off, but the 3 root defilements of lust, hate, and delusion are attenuated to very high degree. So that this person is now incapable of returning to this world more than one more time. But according to the explanation and the commentaries, there are actually several types of once returners. Let me see if I can get this straight. There's a person who becomes a once returner in the human realm, takes rebirth in a heavenly realm, and then attains final nirvana there. A person who becomes a once returner in the human realm comes back to the human realm, attains final nirvana in that rebirth in the human realm. A being, a deva, a heavenly being, attains the path of once returner in the heavenly realm, comes to the human realm, attains final nirvana here. A being in the heavenly realm attains the stage of once returner there, takes rebirth once in the heavenly realm, and then attains final nirvana there. But the maximum case is one who as a human being attains once returner here, takes rebirth in the heavenly realm, then passes away from the heavenly realm and takes rebirth back into the human realm, and then attains final nirvana here. That is the slowpoke amongst them. Okay, the third stage now, paragraph 13. This is the stage of non-returner, called anagami. Okay, let us suppose that once returner isn't content with remaining a once returner, but wants to go further. Or we have somebody with very sharp faculties now, very strong supporting conditions, starting from just the stage of a worldling. Okay, but this person practices very intensely, and let us take the case, the once returner practices very intensely, continuing with the practice. But now to make this transition, this is, in my view, this is where the samadhi has to become strong to the point of jhana. To make that transition from once returner to non-returner. Because, you see, the once returner still has sensuality. The non-returner is going to cut off sensuality and take rebirth in the form realm. And in normal conditions, in normal circumstances, the supporting condition for rebirth in the form realm, for a worldling, is the attainment of jhana. And so to completely suppress the hindrance of sensual desire, and then to be able to cut off sensuality entirely, the attainment of jhana, in my view, becomes almost a necessary condition. Maybe there is a possibility of attaining even arhatship without jhana. This I don't know. The commentaries say so, I'm not sure. But according to certain suttas, when they give the formulaic presentations, the jhanas are brought in as the condition for attaining non-returner status. And so now the disciple who wants to reach non-returner will strengthen samadhi, and then taking that samadhi as the basis, that very strong samadhi as the basis, will start investigating the state of samadhi itself with insight, seeing that even this peaceful, blissful, peaceful state of samadhi is made up of elements or factors. Many factors will dissect that state of samadhi. Many factors that are conditioned, that arise through conditions. And see that these conditions are impermanent. And so the factors, the elements, the constituents of the jhana are impermanent. Since they're impermanent, they are unsatisfactory, dukkha. Since they're impermanent, unsatisfactory, changing, they are substanceless, anatta, not to be identified with as self. And in extending that insight from the jhana to all conditioned phenomena, he'll be in seeing that all conditioned things, impermanent, suffering, non-self. And then when that insight reaches the required level of depth, clarity, sharpness, 5 fetters are cut off. Or actually from the position of the once returner, the once returner has cut off already 3 fetters. So now 2 more fetters are cut off. What are those 2 fetters? The fetter of sensual desire or sensual lust, now permanently eradicated, so it can never arise again. And the dark twin of sensuality, ill will, aversion, anger, cut off, eradicated, so it can no longer, never again arise. And it's possible that there could, in fact, some cases are recorded in the suttas of a person who begins from ground level without any noble attainment, meets the Buddha for the first time or meets the Buddha's teaching, hears a discourse, then somehow through the rightness of the faculties developed in previous lives, all of the requisite conditions come together, and that person will go very quickly. The way it's described in the text is as if the person just goes directly to the 3rd stage. But according to the commentaries, they go instantaneously through first stage, second stage, then to the third stage. So at the first stage, at one moment, they cut off 3 fetters. Just a second after that, they become once returner, reducing, attenuating lust, hate, illusion. Then an instant after that, they cut off sensual desire and ill will to become non-returner. And by becoming non-returner, what is meant is that they never return to the sphere, the domain in which we are living, this world in which you have to turn on news reports and read about fighting breaking out in this country, that country, famine in this country, floods in this country. You get tired of that, you turn on another station and there's dancing, singing, music, entertainment. Another station, there's sports matches. That's the world of Kamaloka, the sensual world. And if we get tired of that, we do good deeds, we get born in the heavenly world, and we have the men get delightful maidens, the women get delightful, beautiful, handsome deva husbands, they listen to beautiful music, and eat delicious food, and dally with each other for hundreds of years. Then they pass away and they come back to this world. All that is finished for them. No more coming back to the Kamaloka. Now they are reborn in the realm of pure form, the Rupa Dhatu. And there's 5 special realms of the non-returner. I won't go into them now, it's too detailed. But there are 5, as I mentioned earlier. It's like the gated community. To get admission into them, you have to show your pass. Your pass is attainment of stage of non-returner. Others want to get in and no admission given. So the non-returners are reborn spontaneously. That is, they pass away from the human realm and they just spontaneously take rebirth there. No rebirth through conception, gestation in the womb. They come into these pure abodes, the 5 pure abodes, and there they attain final nibbana without ever returning from that world. Okay, I want to finish the sutta. There's really not much I can say about the supernormal powers. As I said, the only one that I have personal experience of is traveling in space like a bird. And for that I have to call up my travel agent and get a plane ticket. Okay, so there's these supernormal powers. Okay, the reason these are placed here, to get these powers, one doesn't have to be a non-returner. But they're placed here, it's just a convenient place to put them because it's building up to arhatship as the highest type of superior knowledge. These are 5 types of lower superior knowledge. So these types of direct knowledge, they build upon very strong samadhi. They don't require higher wisdom. They build upon superior samadhi, and then one has to develop special skills in those types of samadhi. And based upon those special skills, the mind becomes very agile, very wieldy, very malleable, very powerful. And with that agile, wieldy, malleable, flexible, powerful mind, one can then form the intention to develop these these supernormal powers, like multiplying the body, appearing and vanishing, and so on and so forth. If we come across these in a later sutta, then I'll elaborate upon them. Again, one could, based upon that superior samadhi, one could develop the divine ear to hear sounds even in other world systems. One could use that powerful, flexible mind to read the minds of other beings, to know their states of mind in different ways, as elaborated here. One could use it to recollect one's previous lives. One could use it to develop the divine eye in order to see how other living beings are passing away and taking rebirth in accordance with their karma. Then, now we come to paragraph 19. Again, using samadhi as a basis and developing insight, wisdom, still further to the final degree, one can reach the fourth stage of liberation, the fourth stage of world-transcending realization. One can make the aspiration, may I realize for myself with direct knowledge, here and now enter upon and abide in the deliverance of mind, or liberation of mind, and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taint. Actually, I now prefer to take, not saying deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom, since there's no and in the text, but it's better to say, I now enter upon and abide in the deliverance of mind, deliverance by wisdom that is taintless with the destruction of the taint. That is, it's referring to one state which can be viewed, it's a liberation of mind, just like the jhanas and the formless attainment, but it is different from them in that it is also a liberation by wisdom. And this is the ultimate liberation which comes through the destruction of the asavas, the root or most basic defilements. The asavas are the three taints of sensual desire, which has already been destroyed at the stage of non-returning. But now there is still the craving for existence and primordial ignorance, fundamental ignorance, the blindness or unknowing of the true nature of things. And now with this realization of this fourth stage, these three, well now it's just these two remaining taints, craving for continued existence in samsara and primordial ignorance. These are extinguished, uprooted, and the mind lands upon or breaks into this liberation, which is at the same time a deliverance of the mind and a deliverance through wisdom. And this is the realization of the fourth stage of arhatship. And if one wants to reach that, again, the prescription is the same, fulfilling the precepts, being devoted to serenity of mind, not neglecting jhana, possessing insight, dwelling in empty huts. And then finally, the Buddha comes back to the opening statement in order to show that the training in virtue is the foundation for this entire training. And so he says, when I said this at the beginning, this was said with reference to all of these 17 benefits that flow from this training in virtue. And that is the end of the discourse. Okay. Sorry for being a little quick, going through a little too quickly. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, the sixth is rupa raga, attachment to form. This would be attachment to existence, could be attachment to the form jhanas, to the jhanas, and attachment to existence in the form realms, or desire to go on existing in the form realms. Next is arupa raga. This would be the subtle attachment to the formless attainment and a desire to go on existing in the formless realms. Those two fetters would correspond to the bhav asava, the taint of craving for continued existence. The next fetter is mana. This is conceit. But it's asmimana, but especially asmimana, the conceit I am. Actually, it's conceit, but the fundamental conceit is asmimana, the conceit I am. This is subtly different from the view of self, which is eliminated at the stage of stream enterer. The view of self is a conceptual view of a permanent self, but still there remains some subtle clinging to the idea of I am this, I am that. That comes out only at the stage of arhatship. Or rather, there's no more thought, even below the stage of arhat, there's no more thought, I am this, I am that, but the thought I am still comes up. So one realizes that the thought I am is a delusion, but it still comes up just spontaneously. But one doesn't hold to that idea I am and then identify with it. That is the eighth. The ninth is uddhacca, which means restlessness. So there's, even for the anagami, who is a very high degree of samadhi, there could still come some degree, periods of would be a very subtle restlessness. But for the arhat, that's completely removed. It could still be a hindrance. The hindrance of restlessness for the anagami still exists. But the anagami could overcome it pretty easily. But if he's not completely attentive and mindful, if he's not entirely diligent and mindful, it could still come up. So it's not a big obstacle. He'll know how to overcome it, but it will still come up. And then the 10th hindrance is, the 10th fetter is ignorance. The last and 10th. Any questions? Okay. When I was sitting in the library for the class, I was thinking, I'm afraid I'm going to run through this in about 20 minutes. Okay, let us share the merits. We think of the devas, the nagas, the devas, the deities, the protective serpent spirits. We ask them to rejoice in the merits and protect the Buddha's teaching, protect the exposition of the teaching, and protect ourselves and others. Then we share the merits with the devas, the bhutas or harmful spirits, and with all sentient beings. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika Punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam akasata chabumata deva nagamahitika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu desanam akasata chabumata deva nagamahitika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu man parang etavata cham hehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etavata cham hehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya tu 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 sabba sampati siddhya